Hi, my name is Jane Ziegelman. I'm the director of Kids Cook. It's a culinary program for children in beautiful Brooklyn, New York. Today we're going to be making real old-fashioned pasta. And my two helpers are Buster and Alice.
Hi.
The first thing we're going to do is make our dough. We're going to do it the old-fashioned Italian way, the way the grandmas used to do it, without a bowl. Measuring. We need about 2 1/4 cups. We'll see if we need a little bit more or a little bit less. But the right way to measure is to fill 1 cup with another cup. That way you get the right amount. Sometimes you can pack too much flour in and your recipe won't come out right. And then level it off and then just kind of dump it onto your board. Now we're going to turn our flour into a work bowl, and we're going to do it like this. Actually, Buster, if you could demonstrate. We're going to sort of make a crater in the middle as if it were a volcano. And right into that crater, we're going to crack our eggs. And we're going to use the, what do you call it? I would call it the opening the book method of cracking an egg, where you snap it a few times and then use your thumb to kind of open the egg as if it were a book. And now, could each kid do an egg? Good, Lovey. I'll take the shells. Okay, good. Buster, can you pick up the fork there and start breaking the yolks? Okay, that looks good. Now if you could just sort of start stirring the eggs around as if you were making scrambled eggs. All right, nice. The next thing we want to do is with our fork, make circles. Yeah, that's it, Buster. Just around the outside of that volcano crater, and we're sort of drawing the flour into the middle. So you get a little bit of flour in, and then you start stirring it around again. Yeah, you can start stirring that bit around. Okay, perfect. Alice, yeah, take over. And of course, you have to, you have to protect your wall, so you don't want an avalanche. As you're stirring the egg, you have to be careful not to break through your flour wall, because that's your bowl. So you're gentle, but you're sort of firm. You don't want the egg to start running all over your board. You want to keep everything contained there in the middle. And of course, as you keep going, the wall gets thinner and thinner, so it gets sort of more and more dangerous, but I think it's exciting. All right, I'm going to do like the last bit of it, because this is sort of the part where you never know what's going to happen. And you can see the egg in the middle is getting really thick. It's beginning to turn into a dough. Okay, and we're ready now to sort of crash the volcano into the middle. And you sort of start pushing the flour in toward the center. And then you sort of just let it collapse. And you can see it's actually pretty neat, considering that there's nothing to hold the egg in, just the flour. And you can see what I'm doing now with my hands, where I'm kind of scooping under and folding. And eventually, this is going to be a nice pasta dough. I think it'll be like maybe 6 more folds, and then we'll have a dough. Okay, kneading. It's all about putting your weight into the dough and really using your muscle. So this is not the time to be gentle. This is the time to really sort of get vigorous. What you want to do is use this part of your hand, the heel of your hand, and press down on the dough and sort of stretch it out. And you guys can do it while I'm doing it. Stretch it out and then fold it in half. And basically you have to kind of keep going like that until the dough begins changing texture. It's going to get less and less sticky, and it's going to get sort of shiny and nice, and it's just going to look more and more attractive. It's going to get sort of satiny and springy. Kneading dough is essentially like giving your dough exercise. The muscles in the dough become really stiff and tense. And after that workout, it has to relax. Otherwise, it just won't let you roll. It'll keep springing back. Now our dough is nice and relaxed, and you can sort of tell how different it was than the dough we started with. It's really smooth, and it's got just this gorgeous texture. To keep the dough from sticking to the board, you need flour. So we sprinkled our work surface with flour, and then we're going to flip our dough over so that both sides have flour and just press down with our palms to get it started. And that's about it. Just a nice pancake-sized piece of dough. I think you'll be incredibly surprised to see how thin and how long this dough is going to become. And that's the whole idea with pasta, is stretching the dough. The real secret to rolling, and this actually applies to pasta or to pastry, is always to start from the center and roll out to the edges. So I'm going to lay my rolling pin right across the center of the dough and start rolling out. And then I'm going to roll toward myself. You could also just flip it over like this and roll in the other direction. And then I'm going to turn it on its side and roll it that way a few times, just to give it a little bit of width. And now, guys, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. So Buster, Alice, across the middle, and yeah, start pushing out. And again, really lean into it. That's good. And Alice, get all the way to the edge, because you can see it's got that nice, yeah, that little bumpy thing there. That's it. Now turn it on its side. Good. And same thing again. That's good. Next, we're going to flip it. Oh, you really got a circle there. That's good, because that means he rolled it evenly in all directions with equal pressure. We're going to turn it one more time. And now we're going to use a slightly different rolling technique, and it's more of a stretching than a pushing. And you'll see how it goes. Again, you start in the middle, and instead of just pushing, you're going to go sort of back and forth like this in these little fast motions. And you can see how the dough just kind of gets pulled out. Now I'm going to flip it over. It's not sticking, so I don't need more flour, but if you found it was sticking then you would dust it again. And I'm going to actually let it hang over the edge of the table, because that weight, it's sort of pulling itself down, and that weight makes it easier to stretch. And guys, you can start doing the same. So you want to start doing those little back and forth kind of rolling. Now, your dough is probably, it's hard to explain, it's like a piece of cloth. It kind of feels almost like denim, like a kind of nice heavy cloth. Our pasta sheets have been rolled out, and we can show you about how long they are. They're about like this, almost a yard long. To make them more manageable, we're going to drape them across our boards like this, so you can pick it up at the ends, like that, and just drape it across your board, and just slice it down the middle. And you can see we're going to be using pizza wheels for our slicing, which are really easy to use. You just have to put your finger on this sort of steering bar and press, and in one clean motion, you'll get a nice, really even edge. So put one half up here, so this one is waiting, and then bring one down to the edge, and this is the one we're going to work on. Do you have it, Alice? Yeah. Good. The trick to using pizza wheels as cutters is to just go in one direction. and not to go back and forth like a saw, because then you sort of get a shredded edge. But if you go in one sweep, the edge is really clean. So that's what we're going to concentrate on, is just pressing down and getting that one edge. And we're going to use sort of our fingers to help us measure how wide the noodle is. So we want, well here, actually Buster, trim off that little fat guy. Yeah. Okay, now we're ready. You can trim off your little fat guy. Yeah. Okay. Good. So about a ½ inch. I sometimes think that the faster you go, the evener they are. But it does take concentration. You can't just kind of race it along. You have to really watch what you're doing. And if one noodle comes out too fat, just cut it in half. So this is our first batch of noodles. And we're putting them on a sheet of corn flour to keep them from sticking. This is basically our drying station. And guys, when you have a bunch of noodles that are ready for the drying station, just pass them down and I'll put them out for you. You want to use cornmeal in your drying station because it absorbs moisture. You could also use, if you happen to have it, semolina flour, which looks like cornmeal, but which is actually made out of wheat. If you don't have any of them, you can try using just a regular all-purpose flour. It'll stick a little bit more to the pasta, but it'll work. If that's all you have and you're in a pinch, you can try it. Your pasta is ready to cook as soon as it's cut. If, however, you want to save it and really turn it into dried pasta, like the kind you buy in the store, you put it on your drying station, or even better, you get a clothesline or a clothing rack and drape the noodles over the bar or the line, and it'll dry in that U shape. And I guess 24 hours should do it. It depends on the weather. If it's a really humid day, it'll take a little bit more. But on a nice dry day, it'll be dry by the next morning. And then you can put it in the cupboard. It'll keep, just like pasta that you buy from the store. We're just putting it on the drying station now to keep it from sticking while we're cutting the rest of our dough. We're ready to cook our pasta. And as you can see, we have a large pot. This is my advice to you. When you're making pasta, always use the biggest pot in the house. Fill it with water, and then put in enough salt so that the water tastes a little bit salty. What the Italians say is it should taste like seawater. So that salt is going to season your pasta, because remember, we use just flour and eggs. This is your seasoning. We also have peas and fresh asparagus, and we're going to cook everything together because luckily pasta, peas, and asparagus all take the same amount of time. So at the end, we're going to have a sort of complete pasta dish without making a separate sauce. First thing to do is add our pasta. You see I'm shaking off some of that extra corn flour and just gently dropping it into the pot. And always give your pasta a stir to keep it from clumping or sticking on the bottom. And I can see they're all floating nice and loose, so that's good. Now we're ready to add our vegetables. Asparagus and peas. Since all of these ingredients are cool, it's going to bring the water temperature down. So it'll take a minute to come back to a boil, but it should be pretty quick. You'll know the pasta is cooked because it'll actually start to look different. It kind of puffs up a little bit, and it'll also start floating on the surface. That's sort of the classic sign that a dough food is ready, like dumplings float, pasta floats. So we're going to just bring this back to a boil, cook it for 4 minutes, and then strain it. Our pasta is ready, but before we drain it, we're going to make a very simple sauce. It's just going to be butter, which I have in a pan, and a little bit of pasta cooking liquid, which is a great thing to make sauce with because it has starch in it. So it helps sort of bind everything together. We're going to just scoop out a little bit of the cooking liquid and use it to melt the butter. I'll do one more scoop. Now I'm going to drain it, then season everything with salt and pepper and Parmesan. This is our strained pasta. We're going to just stir things up a little bit. Season things a little bit. Just regular old kosher salt and fresh pepper and fresh grated Parmesan. The idea when you're making a homemade pasta, you really don't need a lot of fancy sauce because the pasta itself is so good that you just want to add a little flavor to it, but you don't want to cover it up. That should be good. Now again, stir everything together. And you can see the vegetables are still bright green, which is the way you want them. In Italy, this kind of noodle is called pappardelle. It's a kind of wide, flat, little stubby noodle. And we've cooked it with some nice spring vegetables. So it's sort of a pappardelle primavera.